Today, we're going to be working with Vectary, which is a 3D in-browsing modeling software. Hey everyone, what's up? Gary Simon of CourseCetro.com. So today we're going to be stepping into the world of 3D. And you may be wondering, why do that? This is a front-end dev channel. Well, if you're a UI designer, sometimes it's nice to be able to have 3D elements as a part of a landing page, perhaps like something in this context. And also, Vectary.com, as I've discovered, is really easy to learn, unlike traditional software like Blender, where there's a million features, or 3D Studio Max, etc. So we're going to be using this web-based tool. I'm going to show you there's a free sign-up that you can use, and you can also upgrade to premium features, but you don't have to. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started, but first, make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. All right, so here, make sure you start a new project here at Vectary. And just to talk about movement real quick, if you want to look around and get a different perspective, you just take the left mouse button, hold it, and drag around. Very simple. If you want to zoom up, just use your mouse's scroll wheel. And if you want to pan, hold the space bar, left click, and drag. Very easy, very intuitive. I've worked with some other 3D applications that made it a little bit more difficult to do all these things. Here, just to describe what's happened very, very briefly in the user interface, you can see we have tabs up here. We have an object tab, and this is where you can create different things. So, for instance, if you wanted to create a new object from which you can click this, and then you can choose to draw lines or hand draw, you could do that. And here's basic primitives: box, sphere, cone, cylinder, etc., etc. We'll be using a few of those. 3D text, which we'll definitely be using as well. Image planes, camera, lights. Also, when you have objects here, an object selected, you can set them up as an array to repeat them in different ways. We can also deform them, like bends and twists the object that's currently selected. Over here, we have edit mode based on whatever is currently selected, so you can edit the vertices and such and make other adjustments. The library, this is really handy over here. We can see I have the library set up in different tabs. So we have this star-based tab, and this is collections. So there's round shapes by Vectary, zigzag, sharp shapes, etc. Over here is just basic 3D assets from which you can search. So if I type in something like hat, hit enter, there's a bunch of hats. So there's a ton of them from which you can choose that are already predefined. There's also materials right here. So based on your currently selected object, you can place a ton of different materials onto them, and that's basically the skin of the 3D object that you're working with. And some are real reflective, some are not reflective. And after you apply these predefined materials, you can go in and make adjustments to the individual settings themselves. So we'll be doing that as well. And over here we have environments. So if we click on one of these, I'm not going to do that. It will change up the actual overall environment. And if you had 3D objects in here and they had reflections, for instance, you would see different types of reflections based on the photographs that are based on these environments. All right, so let's just go ahead and get started. Of course, this is quite a complex program. We're not going to be covering everything, but just how to create that basic scene that you saw at the beginning of the video, we will cover from scratch. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to hover over this primitive and create a shadow plane. So if we want our objects to kind of be sitting on top of like a plane that you can't really see, perhaps it's the same color as everything else, but you want shadows, then you would use a shadow plane. So we can see it has a defined size, but the size of it doesn't really matter because you ultimately don't end up seeing it. It's basically the size of this current grid as well. Let's go ahead and create our text. So for my example, I'm just using D and C as acronym for design course. And so real quickly, as you can see, when you select an element, you just left click it, you'll see that you have this sort of GUI here from which you can do a bunch of different things. You'll see these different cubes and such. So to move it up and down, of course, on the or the y-axis rather, you just hold this. You can also see we can push it up like on a 45-degree angle. And we can also scale it. So if you take the inner options right here, we scale it down, it's going to scale it down on all axes. If you just do it on the middle one or the top of square or cube, it'll flatten it. And also we can rotate. And we can rotate this way. And rotate that way. So on all 3 axes. All right. So the first thing we'll do is just edit the text. So over here, based on whatever object is currently selected, we'll have a properties panel all over here. And we can see the 3D text is defined in this little text area right here. I'm just going to put a D for design course. And of course, as always, people have started to get annoyed with me because I'm using Montserrat all the time, which only means I'm going to continue using Montserrat. Okay, so let's make this bold, very bold. Big old thick D right there. Did I just say that? Okay, we're going to move this right there. And I'm pretty happy with the angle. I want the C to be like resting on top of it. So to duplicate, we're going to select it. Control D will duplicate it. We can move this copy over. And let's rotate it. And just pull this over. And that's fine for now. We're going to change it to a C. All right, and this is where it's helpful to be able to look around to see, you know, okay, we want this C to be laying against it, sort of, or leaning. So let's make it lean. Wow, that was almost perfect. I got that like pretty solid right there. So of course we could do it more. We don't want it to go kind of inside of each other, so we'll move this over. All right, and also if we go to the render tab up here, you can see the qualities at draft. That's the quality right now, but you could change it to something like medium. And then all of a sudden, every time after you make an adjustment, you will see it will render it real quickly. And it looks freaking awesome already. You can also see our shadow plane right here. It's underneath it. That's what the shadow plane is there for. So if we hide this, we're not going to have any type of shadow. That's why we'll want a shadow, though. It looks freaking good. All right. We can select both of them, by the way, by holding Shift. We can move them both down. We want them to be a little bit closer, like that. And you can see our C is being cut off there. So I think what we'll do, here, let's move this down so that the D is sitting on top. We'll take this thing, pull it up, just so it's sitting right there. There we go. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? Sweet. Okay, so now my logo is like is 3 circles, and basically 2 of them are filled in, and then there's the other one's like a torus at the end. I want to reverse that. I want 2 toruses. Just I don't know why, because I want 2 of them instead of just having a bunch of spheres all over the place. So we'll go back to object, and we're gonna choose. Let's see here, torus. All right, big and bulky and ugly. So again, you know the drill. We're going to scale it down quite considerably. Let's push it towards us because it's sort of in the back. All right, and in properties, you can see we have different things, and people are freaking texting me. Oops, I hope I didn't break my phone. We can see we have segments, so we can increase the segments. By the way, with these type of values, these numerical values in these text fields, you can left click, drag up and down to change them. I'm going to change this to like 30, I think, and then 30 right here. Okay, so that's just kind of like makes it look not so blocky and such. So let's make this one like lean up against here. So let's push this over. Let's get a different view. Left click and drag. You can also, let's see here. We'll put this right there. Make this up. Sorry. Kind of try to get this evened out as much as possible. I will scale it down just a bit probably. And also the tube radius. That makes it less thick. I think right there is pretty good. So now, just a matter of, let's see, pushing this in. It's a little bit off, so let's just push it down. No, let's push it this way, and then this way. That's good. Perfect. So now, oh crap. Let's get that up a bit. There we go. Okay, cool. So now let's just replicate this one. So Control D again to duplicate it. We're going to push this thing over here. We'll rotate it. Let's see, which axis do we want to rotate this thing on? This one. I kind of want it in between both of these. Let's see what that looks like. Almost there. I'm just going to push this out a little bit, away from, because it was going inside. It was bleeding a little bit. There we go. All right, and then we're going to have a sphere. So now we're going to, oops, I double-clicked on that like an idiot. We're going to choose a sphere, and we shall scale it down. Roughly like the same size. So let's drag this dude over here, scale it down some more. Yeah, right there, right around there is pretty good. Let's push this over here. All right, so let's check that out. Sweet. I like it so far. Okay, now let's try to do something a little bit different. Right now, I'm not worried about materials or the colors or whatever. I just want to get everything that's going to be here, you know, in this physical environment to be here. I know this is kind of coming off just a bit. Let me push that down. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and choose. I think we can get away with choosing a box for this because we're going to use this generate tab right here. We're going to generate an array grid, but first we have to have an object. So you'll see how this works in a second. I think the first time I did this, I used this, the polyhedron or polyhedron. I don't even know how to pronounce that. I'm pathetic. Let's move this over, scale it down. We're going to scale it down to be pretty freaking small. All right. We're going to make them darker just so we can see. So we can see we have a material section over here. Just make them darker like that just so we can see them a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to click on Array Grid. Now we can see we have now this huge, vast star field of these polyhedrons or whatever. One thing I want to do before I do that, I'm going to back up by Control Z. Subdivide, I'm going to change this to 0. It makes them a more simple, you know, there's less vertices, so it'll make the scene faster. So what we'll do now is go back to that grid, array grid, and now we're going to change the offsets or the scale as well. So what we want to do is on X, let's bring everything together a lot closer. So I just left-clicking, drag that down. Let's do the same thing for this here as well. Okay, how about scale? Yeah, let's do like 0.4, and then as well as 0.4 on Y and Z. All right, so on this, we're just going to choose 1 for Z because I don't want it to be like a 3-dimensional kind of cube. So now let's see where we're at. It's underneath our plane, so let's get that up here just a little bit higher, and let's move it. I just basically want it to be on the ground, and we're just going to move this over, and now let's see what this looks like so far. All right, that's kind of cool. It's just like an interesting little effect that I came up with. And so now what we can do for the count, we can increase them like this. And I think we're going to do it, yeah, maybe more like let's do like that maybe. It's kind of like almost a square. No. I want it to be like that. There we go. All right, so that's sort of cool. Just like an interesting little abstract design aesthetic. I'm going to take this. We're going to duplicate it, Control D. So what we're doing is building out a composition here that we hope is interesting. Let's see here. Oh, don't do that. Let's select this again. We want to rotate this, if I can choose it. Hold Shift, and you'll see we get to 90 degrees right there. We're going to push it back and up. All right, and this time I want this one to be a little bit different in terms of the count. So we're going to take the count right around there, 14. And this one will make it come, I don't know, maybe 7. Okay, I'm just going to type 7 in. It's a little bit hard to control. Maybe push it over just so we can see a couple on the side. All right, I kind of like that. Okay, so let's put in another element just to show you another thing that you can do here. We'll put in let's see here, a capsule. Scale that monster down by dragging the inner cube. And we'll get it positioned, let's say over here, just so we can kind of see it. How's that look? Let's get it closer to the C. Now, okay, so let's say, for instance, we wanted to make this longer. Well, we could scale it from the top, but then it screws up the nice rounded cap, right? So if you want to make more specific adjustments, we can double click it, and then it's going to ask to convert to geometry. Hit bake, all right? Now we can come into the edit tab. It puts us here automatically, and you have all these tools that you can use. One thing that we can do is we could choose the lasso tool or hit L, and we can just draw around the vertices we want to select. So now we could just drag this up. So of course you could do a lot of other things. I'm not going to be going over all of these right here, but this is all we wanted to achieve with this element. So now we can go back to object, and now we have a longer pill right there. Okay, so let's check things out so far. Looks pretty slick at this point. So let's just say we're happy with this composition, and now we want to experiment with colors. All right, so everything's pretty monotone here. One thing we could see, if we don't have anything selected, if you just select the background, we over here will have our environment, which comes up by default. So if you click on background, we can change the background color, which will also change everything that's on the bottom if you're using a shadow plane. So for me, I'm going to come out, kind of use, maybe right around here. Yeah, right around there. I like this color. So if you want to follow along, I don't know why you would want the exact color code. It is B8F2E4. All right. So now let's make these look a little bit more interesting as well. So this is where we can go over to our library, and we'll select the D, and we'll come over here to our materials, and you can search materials. So, I mean, if you wanted only like pink or something, let's see what happens. You'll just get, different materials that are more pink than others. So if we click on one, you can see they look, some of them, very crazy. And so this is a matter of experimentation. Some of them, sometimes you'll see like these faces in here, that not all of them are like that. Some of them are even really crazy like this. Really, I probably don't even want to use any of these, although I do want something that's a little bit more reflective. So just to let you know that these things are all here that you can use. What I'm going to do is we're just going to choose a very basic one. And I'm going to go back to object, and we have our material down here. And we're going to change up the color just a bit. And I'm going to choose more like a pink color here. Something like that. And then, oh, by the way, you probably really can't see what I'm doing right now. Let me move this over because I'm sitting on top of it. Or I'm on top of it. I'm not sitting on the damn interface. Anyhow, we have more options down here. So you can change the roughness, for instance, the metalness or the reflectivity. All right, and just what I suggest doing is just experimenting with these. Metalness, for instance, what does that do? A lot of this is all about just experimenting. And again, try to experiment and find other materials that are, that might be more in line with what you want by default anyhow. For this one, I'm just going to save this. I think I might want to go, let's see here, right around there. All right, that looks fine. And so I'm going to just name this to my material. All right. Then we can take we can take a few of these other ones. I want 2 different colors for this. So this one will make my material. Wow, that's a pretty crazy looking over there, but I don't want it to be that reflective, but we're going to change that in a second. So this one, let's choose my material as well, and we will change, let's see here, my material. And I'm just going to, actually we're going to choose, let's see here, just a new material. And we're just going to change this here to a blue, maybe right around there. That's fine with me so far. And we'll take this one. Let's just, we'll just call this material blue right here. All right. And then we'll take these remaining 3. And then we'll choose material blue. Okay. So let's enlarge this. All right, so one thing that we can experiment with, again, when we go to the library, is we can come back here to environments. And let's say, for instance, we click on this environment. Like, it will change up how the scene looks and appears just by clicking on these different environments that they have for you. So if we just type in, I don't know, pink. I haven't tried this before, so that might not even show up. Let's see, if you hover over them, it's going to give you specific names. Let's try this one. I kind of wanted a more light environment. That one was horrendously ugly. I do sort of like this one right here. And I'm going to go to back to object, and I think this is too dark, so I'm just going to play around with this here until I can get it a little bit lighter and how I want it to, and I'll just fast forward this part. All right, so I changed up the material real quickly. Just made it more of like a lighter pink color. We're kind of dealing with pastels a little bit more. And let's also add a light here. I'm going to do a hemisphere light, and that's just going to brighten up everything. And you can see we can change the color here. Let's just make it like this, I don't know, maybe pink color right here. And you'll see it'll drastically, if you go like real crazy, like real saturated over here, it'll really kind of give you a sort of like a trippy looking effect. I'm not sure if I want it quite like that. I think maybe right around there might be okay. We can also position this light like we can anything else. So if we move it over here, more towards the center, let's see what that looks like when rendered. It'll brighten things up just a bit more. Now, if we click off here and go to the background, we can again switch back to what we had previously. I kind of like that sort of pinkish color. All right, I sort of like that. And again, you can add other lights if you wish. Spotlight, for instance, or sphere light. Let's try sphere light. And again, when you do this, it's going to really affect things. I'm not going to add this, though, and make it a little bit too crazy. But I'm pretty happy with this. So now when you go to render, you can really crank it up to ultra, perhaps. And right here we have you know, the time that it's taking to render this fully. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that and you learned something new today with Vectary.com. All right, so I'll see you guys soon, and make sure to subscribe.